construction checklist if you are thinking about building a house in Roatan, Honduras, or actually anywhere you want to build. However, this is a guide for Roatan, Honduras based on 15 years of personal experience and also being your chosen realtor in Roatan. So there's the self-promotion. Let's get to the good stuff. So once you buy land, I've got another video on buying land, all the due diligence, all the things that you want to look for, but you already have your land. Now it's time to build your dream home, which is the fun. Well, all of it's the fun part, can be frustrating, let's be honest. However, this is going to be your forever home or your home for, well, however long you want it to be. So Roatan, Honduras, my single best piece of advice I can give you is, well, one, be able to go with the flow, not let the day-to-day frustrations drive you crazy, because that's how people lose their mind on this beautiful island. But also, I do not like to have any single points of failure. And I know I just said a lot of things that can be really scary, but we just got them out of the way at the very beginning. So now we can just have fun and enjoy the ride. So no single points of failure, meaning I don't want to depend my entire plan depending on one single event. And what I say in Roatan, it's just like plan A, B, C, D. It's not necessarily a vertical scale. It can also be a horizontal scale where plan A didn't work, so you have C, D, B, you know, however many. It's in any order. It's just you have multiple plans of attack if the first one does not, which is just kind of a survival guide for Roatan, Honduras. So the fun stuff. It's time to, well, we're going to focus on the building process and not the land. We now want to have some architecture plans. So many people come down with all of these amazing plans, which I love so very, very much. Also, but I would also suggest getting someone local that does know the terrain, knows what can be built here, just has a little bit more knowledge and experience. And I would say talk to at least 3 different architects, ideally a structural engineer as well, and one that's not just going to tell you yes or agree with you, which is also a little part of the learning curve. If you are not from Roatan, and if you're coming from North America, where, well, speaking as an American, we can come off very quick, or Americans and Germans can do it. We can say no very easily. That does not really happen here, and so the no is much, much softer and might get lost in translation sometimes if you are coming from one of the cultural areas where no is, well, used frequently instead of a yes or a nodding and agreeing, but just that also in Roatan, that means no. And it sometimes takes a minute. So why you want that is with the engineering, you don't just want someone to rubber stamp something for you. You do want to make sure it's legit. We are in an earthquake zone, so we do want to be cognizant of those things. If you're putting something on stilts, just be cognizant of what you're putting on stilts. Putting 1,000 square foot pool on stilts because you think it's going to look fabulous might or might not be the best idea. If you want to ask me why, check out my YouTube videos from 3 years ago. But the pool is fabulous. It leaked the entire gosh darn time. It was beautiful, but it's something that I am not going to ever do again. So you have your plans, you have your architecture drawings, your structural engineer, and I would have multiple fail safes. And this is where you also want to think about, if you do not speak Spanish, most of the people that you're going to want to work with speak Spanish, and they might only speak Spanish. And if you're going to limit, I would not suggest limiting your pool to people you are working with to English speakers, especially if they are not coming from Roatan. I know I'm an English speaker coming from North America, living in Central America, telling you to use Spanish-speaking individuals that might or might not be more familiar with the area. And I don't mean anything against the English-speaking architects or, you know, exactly what I'm doing, but it's nice to just not limit your pool, because you do get people that have been here their entire lives. This is what they do. They're not just doing this as, sometimes we get transitional people that come in, pretend to do some things sometimes. So just be very careful with who you work with. And if you are working with, I would not limit your pool to English speaking only. It's fairly inexpensive to get a translator. Anything that you do, any legal document's gonna have to be in Spanish anyway, otherwise it's not legally binding. So are you following? There's a lot of information in here so far, and it's kind of a little bit disjointed. But there's a lot there. I would not limit your pool to English speaking only. So after you have your plans, you're going to want to interview builders also. I would suggest at least 3 builders because that's, well, at least 3 builders. You want multiple points of, multiple points of success, and you also want to see what their current projects are, and you want to ask them about their budgets. How close are they to be on budget, and hear what they have to say. Because at the end of the day, if any builder tells you they're always on budget, I've never known a builder to be 100% on budget, even with the ones that have the best reputation for being on budget. I would just expect them not to be on budget. And when you are coming up with your plans, you also want to work in unison, if you can, with the architect and the builder to kind of optimize your goals and see what are the most important features, because some features are going to be a lot more expensive than the next. And unless you're making those goals very clear, no one's going to tell you no. So you might end up spending a lot of money for a feature that really wasn't that important to you, but then it's blowing your budget. So it can be a little bit slow. I would anticipate about 18 months for this, 12 to 18 months. Sometimes you can get it done faster, but I would just assume you're gonna have an 18-month period with the plans, talking to the builders, trying to come up with a plan that stays within your budget. And now the next unpopular opinion is staying within your budget. I've never had a project that has stayed on budget. Now, I've been aware of it. Wood costs have fluctuated significantly. Even building this thing, which is 1,800 square feet, the entire budget was off by 10%, but based only, well, it was off more than 10%, but it was off 10% because of wood costs. Wood cost changes between the time we started and the time that we finished. So that is something to keep that in mind with a lot of the fluctuation in, well, costs right now. If I had known at the end of the day that the wood was going to cost so much money, I probably would have just done concrete. But that's something that we just kind of have to go with. And I would anticipate going over your budget. For this project, I assumed we were going to go over by 25%. I obviously did not tell the builder that. I gave them a hard line. I said, we cannot go over this. But I would give 2 numbers. You just like sets of books. You have two different numbers. You have your builder number, and then you also have the, this is the real number. And I would anticipate going over by 25%, even if you're there every day. And now here's the thing, you can pull it back, you can pull things back, and that's what I see a lot of times is people pulling back because they give the builder their maximum number at the beginning. Then you're gonna start missing details. You're not gonna have window frames, you're not gonna have a porch, you're not gonna have a driveway, you're not going to have shower doors. You're going to lose pieces, and people are going to start getting creative with what you need and what you don't need, because we don't really have building inspections. And so do you need all of the superficial things like window frames? No, not really. The window's still going to seal, but it is going to look nice. Do you want cabinets? Do you want poles? I know these things. You want these guys? Little things. I know that those get cut off in the United States a lot, or they're not included in the builder fees. But those are just some things to think about with the budget and anticipate it going over, which I know nobody ever wants to hear. If you actually had a project done that was on budget and was fully complete, not skipped around, missed a bunch of things, and also they can skip a bunch of steps and not tell you, so you don't actually know that you're missing those steps. But this is a positive video, and it's so you can have the best experience when you're building in Roatan, Honduras, or really anywhere. But keeping that budget on track, even if you know what is going on every single month, you're controlling the expenses. I would anticipate at least 25%. Another tip that I like controlling the expenses, and I like monitoring what's going in and out of my bank account. And I can do, versus giving someone hey, here's 20 grand, do whatever you want with it. Okay, here's the steps that are finished. Because if you give them a certain amount of money, that amount of money is going to be gone forever. You're going to get most of your list done. Steps are going to be skipped just to stay on budget, if you will. So that's why I like having, it's a little bit more, not, I wouldn't say micromanaging, it's much more tedious, but it's better than just giving lump sums with expectations or loosely written expectations, because then that's when we have just interpretation errors, and that doesn't matter what language you're speaking, where you're coming from. That's just humans and how we work. So thank you so much for tuning in. I talked a lot about budgets, well, a lot about keeping the budget and all the things that can go wrong with your budget. And that's just because budgets are very rarely held here to get what you initially believe you are getting.